Tell you what, hand sanding this thing is going to take a while, but I think it's the way to go. And I'll try to explain a little bit more about why and what I hope to achieve before we get to the end of the video. But I think we'll finish assembling it, or at least get it ready to set the rivet. I may do the finish before that, or we may decide that we can go ahead and do that. But I think I have several hours worth of work to do with this little piece of sandpaper. Or should I say lots of little pieces of sandpaper, because this is a time-consuming part of the project. So what does that leave us today? That means we need to get this mounted on our back plate. So let's take a look at what we want to achieve. Now the Dragon will mount to the back plate and it will pivot. We've discussed that. And the tip of the tail is going to hammer on this little rivet that we made. So how big do we need the back plate? That would really be the first thing to decide. Our Dragon overall is about 10 inches. And I don't know if the back plate needs to come clear to the top of his head or not. It would probably look better. In fact, I think this entire back plate would probably look pretty good. But then we don't have anything to make the mounting tabs out of. So I think we're going to try getting the mounting tabs out of this. So I'm going to end up cutting this square. I'm going to go from both sides and kind of average it because I'm not sure that the edges are perfect. Well, that looks pretty good. And I think if we go about this big with the mounting plate, we'll be okay. So does that leave us with enough material to get our little tabs out of? That leaves us with 1.25 inches to the shortest point here, and that should be enough. And we are then going to cut it in half, or cut it in half first. By marking from both sides, we actually end up with a double line, and we'll cut right in between that line. We have the back plate with the squared up ends. The Dragon will fit quite nicely on there, I believe. And we have our two little tabs. Now, these are going to need to get evened up. I think I want a round like that. Can you see that? On both of these, and that'll look better on the Dragon. So we can do that real quick with a file or a grinder. Now personally, I think an angle grinder is going to be the way to go. It'll get this done quickly and easily. Allows me to leave them clamped in a vise, which is easier than holding them under the belt grinder. There are two little tabs that will get mounted to the back plate with the Dragon in between. Next thing I need to do is drill mounting holes. And I'm going to use a pair of compasses. And I call these compasses because I got this set from Peter Ross, and he calls them compasses. He says that's the historical name, even though most of us think of it as a divider. So I'm just going to use this and scratch a little mark centered and decide if that's where I want my hole to be. That may be too far back. No, that's pretty good. I think that's what we're going to go with. That centers the hole on the end, between the sides and the same distance from the end. This is a very nice pair of, actually they're Cooper's compasses, made by Mr. Peter Ross. I got these at the Rocky Mountain Smiths conference a few years ago when he demonstrated. I asked him if he'd make a pair, and he said, oh, you can just buy this pair from me. So I bought that pair from him, because he had them there to display. I had to loan him back to him because he needed them during his demo. So there those are, drilled and just lightly deburred on the edge so there's not a sharp edge. Next thing we need to do is make some little tabs on the back side so that they have something we can tenon over. The little mortise and tenon joint is what's going to hold these. So I need to cut some little tabs on the back. For that we will ultimately need a slot in this back plate. So I'm going to use this slot punch for that purpose. It is ever so slightly smaller than the thickness here, so we'll be able to file that down a little bit more and hopefully get something that fits very nicely and you won't be able to see the hole from the top side. Now, using my punch as a guide, I'm going to mark how much to leave for the tab. And then I'm going to try to very carefully saw this out. I am right on top of my vise, and that's going to be a positive stop for me, but I don't want to cut into my vise. That's not good for the vise. So pay attention and stop before you get to the vise. You stop just shy of a blade's width, then you'll be able to clear this off very cleanly and neatly. Just by sawing sideways. Lots of stuff on this bench that rattles. So basically, that's all we need to do there. But I would prefer to round the edges up and make sure that it doesn't have sharp corners to hold up. And press into the piece and not down on your vise so you don't wear your vise out. If you do a lot of this work, you can make a vise insert to protect the vise just for this. I'm also going to thin this up a little bit since my punch is slightly skinnier than this material is thick. But by working right down to the surface of the vise, it guarantees everything is in line and all the shoulders line up. And we may need to file the holes just a little bit to make that fit. So that's really all we're going for. Nice little tab. The question now is, where do we put the dragon vertically? I think I want to pretty much center the strike point and the pivot point so that they're all about the same. That's 1.5 inches. That's 2 inches, so let's come up just a little bit, 1.75 inches. So this is the center of my tabs. And I have left a 1/2 inch there, so that's 1/4 inch on either side. And that's where my slots will go. So I went ahead and drilled some holes. That way I just have to punch out between the holes, and it's going to be much easier and much less chance of splitting this. This would be a real good place to split it, and that's the last thing I want to do at this point. So we've kind of hedged our bets against some sort of a split here. And I think we'll be in good shape. Without the holes, I wouldn't dare take this anywhere near that cold. It didn't go all the way through. But the holes give the stress a place to go. It's going to take just a hair of cleanup, possibly. It's hot to get your fingers close to. No, that looks like it's going to fit. Yep. That's pretty good. So those are the holes we need. I've got the holes in here, and I went ahead and drilled all the mounting holes for everything else, just doing a little filing on the edges. Then I'll run this through the forge one more time to scale up where I filed, just so it blends in a little bit better. But it'll at least be clean and smooth and have a nice little bevel on it. Well, as we near the end of the video, we're pretty much right where we started, needing to do some hand finishing before we assemble everything. I've gone over all of the parts with some 80 grit sandpaper, and you'll need a fair amount. It wears out pretty fast doing this. And then I go to some Scotch-Brite just to kind of buff it up. If you do this on a belt grinder or a wheel, flap wheel, wire brush, any of that kind of stuff, it's very obvious that you did it that way. But for some reason, the 80 grit sandpaper done by hand is such a random scratch pattern, it doesn't look like it's been sanded so much. It just leaves some nice highlights and gets rid of some of the surface scale and leaves a very interesting pattern on here. And I think that's a real good way to finish some of this stuff. But we'll have to do a little bit more of that after we put it together. I will darken some of this when we use a torch to do the assembly portions. But it is time to assemble. So the next thing we need to do is put these in. Now these tabs, originally my plan was to rivet them over in the back. But because of a lack of material, and I didn't want to cut the back plate any shorter to make these tabs any longer, they actually come out flush. So I can't rivet them. That would have been my preference. It'd be more traditional. But I'm not all that opposed to taking just a little bit of time with a torch, and I'm just going to weld these. You can certainly TIG weld them, MIG weld them, whatever, but if you've got enough material on something like this, just peening these over in the back is plenty strong enough. It doesn't need to be anything special. So I'm going to go ahead and weld those. To do that, I'm going to clamp a bar the same thickness as the Dragon in there, and I will clamp that up in the vise. I'll weld these in the back. And then we'll actually look at peening over this little strike pad. You don't need to watch me weld, but I think peening this and showing how I can do the flush rivet on that, I think will be at least interesting enough to be worth showing. But after that, we're just about done. We have these tabs welded to the back and ground smooth. So that's going to fit through there. The next thing to do is put this little striker on. And this isn't perfectly centered, just the nature of the beast. So when we put it on, we're going to have to rotate it around until we find where it looks the best. This hole has been countersunk in the back to allow me a flush rivet when this is all done. So I'm going to set that in the hole. That's not too bad. I think that looks better. That looks more centered. So we're going to heat that with a torch, give it a good set to make sure it's tight right through here. That's standing up, so I'll hit that with a monkey tool real quick. And then we'll heat it up with a torch, and we will peen this over in the back and make it flush, and the back plate will be ready for the dragon. Make sure that's down tight. I'll just put a monkey tool over that little bit of rivet and set that down. That's better. So I'm just going to use a ball peen hammer to set that. And in mild steel, I do that cold. But in the wrought iron, I think I'll heat it up. If the back of this rivet cracks, it's no big deal. But if the crack goes all the way through the head, it'll have to be drilled out and a new one will have to be made. And you could plug weld this just like I did the others. It's certainly an option. This would have been my first preference for the little tabs, though, if I had enough material to make those tabs a little longer. Of course, that cools off fast. It might as well be cold. Make sure that's straight and in line. Okay, that's pretty much it for the back plate. I'm going to do just a little bit of quick sanding to get rid of the fact that I've turned this blue and bronze in a few places. And then it will be time to use this pin to mount the dragon. Alright, I've cleaned that up, and I'll have to clean it up at least one more time as a result of the heat from the setting this pin. I'm going to use a pair of rivet sets. I think I can get this in there. It's going to be real close. It'd be nice if it was a rivet set with a sharp edge to really get that in there close, but we'll go with what we've got. The pin fits nicely through these holes. Fits nicely through this hole. So in an ideal world, that means it fits nicely through all three together. If it doesn't, you can put them together and line them up and then run a drill bit through. But this is how the dragon will work. Now it's just a matter of heating this up and setting this rivet. I think it's worth doing a little bit of a practice run. I think the first head I'm going to have to start right here, and then I can bring it up and put it in there to do the second head. So let's get that hot and see what happens. This is one of the most nerve-wracking parts of a project like this, because if you screw it up now, it's really the pits. If it's just a matter of a bad rivet, that's not so bad to fix. This would be nice if I had an extra person right now to help hold this. Trying to hold this, the hammer, and the rivet set all at the same time might be problematic. If I had just the right rivet sets for the treadle hammer, that would be a wonderful way to go. I'll just see if I can balance that. These are not going to be very pretty rivets, I'm afraid. I think I'm just going to hand form them. I think I'll do a better job than trying to get all that shoehorned in there to try and get a rivet set. I think that's going to look much better. Just kind of work the hammer around in a circle to get a nice head on there. It doesn't need big heads. It's not really a big deal here. because you don't want to make it too tight. And I have made that a little tight, so I'm going to heat that whole thing up and work that. This is really very much like working a set of tongs or any other tool with a moving joint. By the time you get the rivet set, you've often clamped it together so tight it won't move. But by doing this, we can loosen it up a little bit. That loosens up very nicely. We'll have to do a little bit more sanding. I'm going to put just a little bit of paste wax in there, even though that's not my final finish, just to get it down there to help lubricate that joint. Get a little bit of wax down in there, and hopefully that makes this run nice and smoothly. It's a little bit too hot to hold on to. And as it cools off, then I'll start doing that final sanding. And that'll sand any of the wax off out here where it shows, but there'll still be wax down there in the joint. Well, you might be sensing a common theme here, that there's a fair amount of sanding if you choose to finish it in this manner. But I think it's really worth it on some projects to show these highlights. You get to see the hammer marks. And I think this is going to be a very nice project. I'm going to have to find a door to put it on though, because the house door's got a window on it, and so does the shop door. So I may have to make another door, or just hang it next to the shop door, or it may just hang on the wall in here and look good. But that is the completed project. Still a little bit hot to hold on to in some places. Knocks very nicely. Looks good, and I'm pretty happy with it. This project started off as just over 4 pounds of wrought iron. This is what we have left. This little handful of scrappy bits is all of the identifiable stuff that I've cut off, plus that little piece of nail rod that I made. And in another video, I'll see about making some nails. Personally, I think I'd rather put this up with screws than nails, and that seems more secure and you can take it off. And if I use it as a display piece, it may get moved around a few times. So I kind of like the idea of using screws better. But I'll probably still make the nails, and we'll just make that as another video. Maybe. I'm not a very good nail maker. So there you have it. One finished door knocker, looking like a dragon. This has indeed been a fun project, and I want to thank you for joining me while we worked on this. This has been done over essentially 5 videos. One to rough out the material and get the stock prepared to make this out of. 3 of them pretty much just dealing with the dragon, and today's video to finish the back plate and assemble it. But all in all, I think it was really a good thing to do. I want to thank Roy for sending me the wrought iron and allowing me to participate in his collaborative project. For any of you joining us late, this was a project thought of by Roy Adams over at Christ-Centered Ironworks. Not the dragon specifically, but he sent out about a 4-pound piece of wrought iron to several other blacksmiths and said, see what you can do with it. So we have all come up with something. Not all the videos are done yet, but there are some other YouTube channels that will be participating in this. Specifically, better look at my note, David over at Work with Nature, Tim at Big Dog Forge, and of course Roy at Christ-Centered Ironworks are all doing some sort of a project using the same wrought iron source that Roy sent out. Mine was the Dragon Head door knocker. The others will have their own projects, won't have anything to do with this other than that the iron came from the same source. So you can get an idea of a variety of things you can do from the same starting point. Starting with the same material, roughly the same size of material, although I think Roy's using a little bigger piece because he's making a sledgehammer. But in any case, everybody's got their own little take on what they can do, their own specialty, their own comfort zone. You guys challenged me to step out of my comfort zone, and instead of making an axe or an adze, we made a door knocker. I have not made a dragon in a long time, so the dragons we did as part of this project have really been a lot of fun to do. The wrought iron presented some challenges. It's not just like working mild steel. It needs to be worked hotter, and it needs to be worked with consideration for the grain and the structure of the wrought iron. It is a different material. It has its own rewards, but it also has its own challenges. If you ever get some, I encourage you to work with it, but maybe don't tackle anything quite this difficult the first time. I think a simpler door knocker would have gone much smoother, but it might not have been as much fun. So check out Work with Nature, Big Dog Forge, and Christ-Centered Ironworks to see what they're going to do with this material. I'll put some links down here in the description so you can find their channels more easily. There's also a collaborative playlist where all of the shops that are working on this will have their videos posted together. Roy is taking care of that playlist, putting it all together, and I will link at the very end of the video to that playlist as well as down in the description so you can find it and watch all of the videos there. It includes everything everybody's done and posted on this subject. Now, is this piece 100% done? No, not quite. It still needs to be finished, but I'll do a video just on finishing and talk about some options. I'm not putting a finish on this today because I'm still going to do some more sanding on it, and because I need another ingredient for the finish that I want to use, and I'm going to have to pick that up. Anyways, I hope all this has been fun. I hope you've enjoyed the series of videos. I hope you go and watch the other guys' videos and see what they're up to. And I'm kind of hoping Roy sends some more wrought iron out to a few other people. I don't know if he's planning on that or not, but maybe there will be a few other shops involved at some point in the future. I have no idea what his plans are, so go over to his channel and take a look. Hope you can give this one a thumbs up. Love it if you hit that subscribe button. Feel free to share the videos, watch more of the videos. But make time in your day, get out in the shop, challenge yourself, have fun, but stay safe, and do wear your safety glasses. We'll see you for the next one.